Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE, and today I have a fun Halloween card for you. I am using the Kindred Stamps, the horror stamp set. When I saw this stamp set, I just fell in love with it. So what we're going to be using today is this awesome stamp from Katzelkraft, and it's called Torn Paper, and I'll have it linked below. And then this is the main star, the horror stamp set, and we're going to be using the little Dreamy guy there. So the Katzelkraft Torn Paper stamp is actually unmounted. So what I did to get it to stick to my Misti, as you can see there, I just took some tape runner, ran it a couple times on the back, and it stuck to my Misti several times. It continues to stick. So if it starts to fall off, then I'll just add some more to it. So that was an easy way for me to be able to get this to stick into my Misti. So I am going to be using the large torn paper area. So what I'm going to do is I'm using a piece of full stick Post-it note paper, and I'm just going to put that down while I ink up the part that I do want with Raven Black ink from Brutus Monroe. And then I'll take that off before I stamp it down on my panel. This is a great, easy, inexpensive way if you want to do some quick masking like this to make sure you're only stamping up areas that you want to stamp up, especially if you're using rubber stamps like this that will sometimes come with multiple images on one. Just don't forget to take that Post-it paper off. I have done that before, and when you stamp it down, you're going to get that black area that you stamped. So remember to pull that off. Usually you only do it once, and then you seem to remember. So I'm going to lay this down. I loved this image, and I thought the Dreamy guy would be perfect coming out from this ripped paper because he comes into your dreams. So it's almost like he's busting into your dreams on the card. So I thought this would be perfect to have him. I originally had thought about putting a couple of them in, but I decided to just do him. So I'm going to use some Brutus Monroe masking paper because I'm going to ink up the background with some Distress Oxide ink. And I love this masking paper. It's thin, but it holds up really well. It has a great stick, so you don't have to worry about it peeling up. And you can, I've watercolored over it and it's held up. So this is one of my favorite masking papers. So once I get it stamped down, I am going to, I did turn off the camera while I was fussy cutting this. I'm showing you that I'm cleaning off my stamp. I have gotten in a really bad habit of not cleaning my stamps as soon as I'm done with them, so I'm trying to get back into that. So I was using the Brutus Monroe Squeaky Cling, which smells so good. It's made with rose water. So I am going to fussy cut this out because I want to cover up, I want to mask off that ripped paper area when I do my ink blending. And I will say this was not as difficult as I thought it would be because I am not a fan of fussy cutting. But it was relatively easy to go through and fussy cut. And like I said, with using the Brutus Monroe masking paper, it stuck really great. So I didn't have to worry about ripping it or having to do it again. So I'm just going through, sorry about my head being in the shot there, but I wanted to make sure I had this laid down exactly where I needed it to be before I started doing all of that ink blending. And I actually did two of these cards. I did one first where I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with the background, so I didn't fussy cut out the mask completely. And I definitely made sure on the next one that I fussy cut it out a little better. I was able to kind of go in and make it work, but I like this version a lot better. So now I'm going to go in, and I could have went ahead and did the background, but I wanted to just get off my stamping out of the way. So I'm going in and I'm going to position the little Dreamy guy where I want him. And he's not going to completely fit, which is okay. I didn't want him to fit. I wanted it to appear that he's kind of popping through the paper, that he's just shredded that paper or shredded into your dreams, so to speak. So I'm going to use my full sheet Post-it paper again, Post-it notes, because I want to ink this up, but I don't want my ink to go over where I'm going to be doing my background. So I want to make sure that I'm only inking the part that I need. Now there is a little bit there in his arm that I didn't worry about, but that's going to go onto the mask because remember the mask is actually on that paper right now, so it didn't really matter because when I pulled the mask up, that part would come with it. So I'm using my Raven Detail black ink from Brutus Monroe. This is a great Copic friendly ink, and it's a very crisp ink. That's why I like to use this one whenever I'm doing any type of Copic coloring or watercoloring. So I'm going to stamp him down. And part of his sweater, the little lines on his sweater, did not transfer over very well. And so what I'm going to do to fix that, I could have re-inked it and stamped it again, but I decided to just take a thin black marker and just go over that little area. It wasn't very much. And what I'm using there, let me get the pen, is the Micron, and this is the 0.3. So it's a very fine point. So it was very easy just to go in and fill in that line. So now on to the background. So I decided to use the Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide. I hadn't used my Distress Oxides in a while, so I decided to pull them out. I am using Bristol Smooth cardstock. That is something else I did on the first card that I created, is I did it on Nina, which I love Nina to Copic color on, but Oxides just blend like a dream on the Bristol Smooth. So when I did it the second time, I used the Bristol Smooth. And I am going to go back in and add a little bit of black soot just to kind of darken that up a little bit. I wanted it to be kind of a night looking, but he's in their dreams. So I just wanted it to kind of be dark. So there you can see the finished blending, and that's just the Blueprint Sketch plus a little bit of the black soot. So now on to the Copic coloring, and I do have all of the colors listed below, and I will tell you as we're going through, and I actually remembered this time to set the cap beside it. That's another, I just forget. You get into coloring and forget that it's even recording, quite honestly. So what I'm using for his hat is I am laying down a base of C3. His hat is browns and tans and things like that, but he's pretty grungy, so I wanted it to have kind of that base of a little bit of a darkness with the gray. So I'm going in with my E25 and doing my darkest areas next. And then I'm going to go in, I believe, with the E13. Yes, E13, and then go in with some E23 to finish it up. The Copic coloring on this image was really simple to do. I did pull up an image of Mr. Dreamy on my phone, and I encourage you to do that. If you're not sure what something looks like, and it can be with animals, anything, pull up an image and kind of look at it, see what do the colors look like. So his sweater is red and green stripes. So for the red, and I'm only using 2 colors on these, I'm using R39 for the darkest and R29 for the lightest. So I went in and laid my R29 down, and then I'm just going back in with some of those darker areas for the R39. And for the greens, I decided to use a yellow green because when I was looking at the picture of him, the same thing. It was kind of that grungy, dirty color, so I wanted to give it a little bit of the yellow color in there as well. So I'm using YG97 and then going over that with the YG99. I am not a fan of horror movies. I spend most of my time with my head down or hiding my face. My son loves them. My husband, he loved them. But I have to say, this little guy was so fun to color. I really enjoyed making this card. So now I'm going back in for his face. And his face, I laid down RV02 first, and then I'm going to go back in with some R35. Excuse me, and I am going to add just a small amount of the R39. When I was looking at the image, the places on his face were not real dark. They weren't like a dark red. They were more on the lighter side. So I wanted to make sure that that came through in the coloring. And for his actual skin tone, which was really light, I laid down E00 first and then went back over with some E02. And then I'll go back in with the E00 and kind of blend some of that out. His skin was really peachy, and it appeared very light and peachy, especially with the red. So I wanted to kind of keep that appearance. So I'm just going in. I will add I think I just used the RV02 to add in for his tongue. His open mouth area, there wasn't really much to it, but I didn't want to leave it stark white, so I just went in and added a little bit of that. And I will take the C1 and just go around his eyes a little bit. So for his little glove that has his knives on it, I used C1, C3, and then E43 and E42. So now I'm going to remove the mask. You can see he was very simple to color, didn't take any time at all. Now I'm going in and I'm removing all of my mask. And once I get the mask removed, I decided to do this in gray because it was, like I said, this is him coming through their dreams. So I'm using C3 as my lighter color. So I'm going to go in and lay that down everywhere and then go back in with some C5 to give it some of the shadows. And I really had to look, and you'll see this area I'm coloring here, I really probably should not have colored because it was not really part of the paper. It was more where it had ripped, if that makes sense. But I'm going to go in and add C1 to the entire background behind him so it's not so stark white. So it was okay that I did that. I was able to kind of fix it. And that was the biggest challenge, honestly, with this paper, was just figuring out, okay, where do the shadows, what do I need to color, what needs to be what's still part of the background, you know, where he's busting through. So once I got that figured out, the Copic coloring was really very simple. So I'm just going back in with that C1 now, and I just put a very light, I'm not pushing very hard on this marker at all. I just wanted to give it kind of that grungy look in the background so it wasn't so stark white where he was coming through. So I used the C1. If I had a C0, which I do not at the moment, I probably would have laid that down and maybe gone over with the C1, but it came out okay. And that's really it. Now all I need to do is just mount it, add my sentiment. If you're new to Copic coloring, this image is a great image to start with. It's very simple. Like I said, there are so many images for me to look at online to kind of see how to color him and what colors needed to be done. If you're a Copic colorer who is very experienced and wants to do a quick, fast card, Halloween card, this is a great one to do as well. And honestly, it doesn't even necessarily have to just be Halloween. If you have a fan in your life who loves this character or any of the ones in the horror stamp set, these are great cards year round. I actually have a project coming up where I'm going to use one for a Christmas ornament. So I decided to stamp out the sentiment from the set that says, "You're so dreamy." I thought that fit perfect. And I stamped it out with Brutus Monroe clear embossing ink. And I'm going to heat emboss that with the Raven detail embossing powder. So I'm going in and just adding it. I want to make sure I get a really good coverage on this. And I wanted a simple sentiment. And when I had laid it out where I was going to have the ripped paper, I decided that I wanted to leave that area down there. And the paper the drawing lends itself to kind of opening that area up. Because I thought about doing a landscape card for this, but I really liked the shape of the torn paper for the portrait. So I've got that heat set, and I do like to take a Swiffer cloth and go back over just to get rid of any of that powder, make sure that I've got everything kind of cleaned up around. It's to shiny up the embossing. So I wanted to give the front panel some dimension, so I added some fun foam, and I am gluing that down to a piece of Midnight cardstock from Brutus Monroe, and I did cut my panel down by 1/4 of an inch on each side. And I am just adding that to my panel and putting it onto my card base. I use Nina 110-pound card base, and that's the final card. So simple. I literally made 2 of these last night in less than an hour. So much fun. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out Kindred Stamps. They have some fabulous pulp culture stamps, and they're so creative. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day. Once again, all products are listed below, and don't forget to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. Thank you.